Today's daf is daf Mem Vav. We are going to begin on daf Mem Vav on the base by the last Mishnah. If a person sells himself and his children as slaves to goyim, the halacha is ein poidin oisei. You're not allowed to redeem him. Aval poidin as habanim la'achar misas avian. But the children are redeemed after their father dies. Zog the Gemara, Rabasi says that this din that we said, that when somebody sells himself and his children to goyim, you're not allowed to pay his pidiyah, is that he sold himself for a first time, and then he was redeemed, and then again he repeated and sold himself a second time, and was redeemed, and then he repeated again by selling himself a third time. So since he sold himself 3 times, the Chachamim gave him a knas, and saying that nobody else could redeem him because he'll get used to this, that each time that he needs money, I'll just sell himself to goyim, relying on the Yidden to redeem him. One says a story, Hanu b'nei Bei Mirsi. There were these residents of the city of Bei Mirsi, the Yosvi Zuzi Migoyim, Ulehabeluhu Lemifrinu. They borrowed money from goyim, and they didn't have the means to repay them. Osu v'ko gorvi lehu. So what happened? The goyim came and they took them as slaves. So now they came before Rav Huna, and they asked that the Rav Huna should tell the Gittin that they should redeem these slaves. Amar lahu. So Rav Huna said to them, "My evid lehu. What can I do?" The Mishnah says clearly, is one of the goyim. If you sell yourself and children as slaves to goyim, one is not allowed to redeem you. So Rabbi said to Rabbi Ami, the Madatani, Rabbeinu, that our master, he taught us that this din applies only if he repeated it a second and a third time, which the chair over here, which was not the case. So Amar Leir, when it said to them, Hani mirglo regilida of the hachi, these people do this by habit, and it's as though they sold themselves for a second and a third time. Whereas there's another story, there's a certain man that sold himself to these people from Ludoi. Ludoi is the people that eat, these people partially used to eat people. So what happened? He came before Rabbi Ami, and he said to Rabbi Ami, Pirkin, like Rashi says, you should redeem me. So Amarlei, so Rami said to him, the Mishnah says, Hamecher Asmim is one of the game, and paid Nese, I will pay Nasabana Mishum Kilkula. V'chol Shekein Hachad the Ikav Tala. So he says that we learn clearly you're not allowed to sell yourself and children as slaves, and you're not allowed to redeem it. Now he says his children are, and then he quoted at the Mishnah that his children are redeemed as afterwards because Kokula, because we're worried that Mele, if the father is still alive, the father will make sure that the children are still keeping Shevet and Mitzvahs. But once the father is not there anymore, we're worried that the kids will become misadded with the goyim, become assimilated with the goyim. And how more so where there's a concern that if you don't redeem them, then they might be led to death. So he should be redeemed. The Chacham says to Rami, Hi Yisrael Mumaru. This man is a mumar, the kochazali, the kochalavelis trefus. As they saw that he was eating nevelis and trefus, so he said to them, let's say that he was eating them due to his appetite. He was just talking about taivanik, but not because he was a mumar. So Amarlei, they said to him, he says there are times where there is permitted and forbidden foods before him, and he permits, he takes the forbidden foods. So we see that it's nothing to do with Taivus, but rather it's to do because he's a Moor. So Amalei, once Rami heard this, said, Zeal, like Koshavki lay, if I can go, because they do not allow me to redeem you. Because he is a Yisrael Moor. Where it says another story, Rish Lakish, this is when he was very young, before he became a Baal Tshuva, he sold himself to these people of Lidoi. Shkal Ba'adei, and it was intentional. Shakal Ba'adei, a Chaisa V'Gulvalta. He took a bag and a round stone inside of it with him. Put this round stone in a bag, and they didn't know that there was a round stone in it. Omar, before, so he borrowed money from them, and he couldn't pay them back. So they were about to kill him. They were about to eat him up. So Amar Rish Lakish said, that there's a tradition that on the final day of a captive's life, before the captors kill him, they do him a favor, and anything that he wants, they grant him. Why do they do this? So that he would forgive them for killing him. So what happened? On the final day before they were going to kill Rish Lakish, so they said to him, what do you want? I want to tie you up and have you sit, and each one of you, I'm going to hit you 1.5 times. So what happened? So what happened? Continue Bezvinu. So what happened was he tied them up. Each one of them were sitting. When he hit each one of them with one blow, because he was very, very strong, they died. So what happened? So there's different ways how to learn this, but some say that Rish Lakish was like gritted his teeth in anger, and he said that the one who killed you, in order to prevent the others from realizing that was happening, are you laughing at me? So he didn't want people to understand that he killed him, and he started saying, are you laughing at me? So what happened? You still have a half a strike remaining with me, because I only struck you once. So what happened? He was able to kill all of them because their hands were tied behind their back. They were not facing each other, and each one didn't realize that the other one was getting killed. So Nafik V'asa, he left and came back home. He was sitting, eating and drinking. He didn't care because everything that he made, he used to spend that day. His daughter said to him, you don't want something to lie upon? So he said, my daughter, my belly is my pillow. This is enough for me. When he died, he left only a kav of saffron as a yerusha, and he said the pasuk about himself, and they leave their wealth for others, meaning that he was pained that he did not use all of his property, because he had such emunah that Hashem would give him. He didn't have to save anything for the future. Okay, now the Mishnah says a new thing. A person who sells his field to goyim, the kerach maybe meant to be kudim. So as a knas, and when he sells his field to a goy, he has to buy. It doesn't matter how much money it is. He has to buy the bikurim back and bring it to the base of Mikdash to go to Hilim, because this was a Tikkun Hilim. They don't want people selling fields to goyim. Omar Rabba says, she says, even though goy has no capability of buying land in Eretz Yisrael to cause it to be mafkia from the Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, again, even though that a goy cannot buy a land in Eretz Yisrael to make it not like it says, in other words, the pasuk says the kedusha of the land is mine. A goy does not have that. However, the capability of acquiring land in Eretz Yisrael, however, a goy does have the capability of acquiring land in Eretz Yisrael to allow him to dig pits, ditches, and caves in the land that he purchased. So, like it says, heavens are the heavens of Hashem, but the earth he has given to the children of men. Now, this is according to, again, Rabbah says that even though a goy cannot buy land in Eretz Yisrael to be mafkid from Meiser, so the guy is still mechuyev in Meiser, but he still has a kinyan that he can dig and build a shifting orders over there. Now, this is Shittas Rabbi. Rabbi Lazar says, he says, no, even though goy has the capability of buying land in Eretz Yisrael to cause the mafkia from the Kedushas Eretz Yisrael and removing it from the obligation of Meiser, like it says, the gan goy, Like it says, your dagan is mechuyev, but not the dagan of a goy. He says, but a goy does not have the capability of acquiring the land in Eretz Yisrael to allow them to dig pits, ditches, and caves, as it says, Shnimar Lashel Arts. So now the Gemara says, "My kamifagi." What exactly is Rabbi and Rabbi Lezer arguing? Marsover the gon chavle the gan goy. Rabbi Lezer holds that the pasuk says, "Your grain," teaches us only the grain in the field of a yid is obligated in meiser, but not the grain grown in the field of a goy. Marsover the gun chavle the gun goy, and Rabbi holds that your grain is not referring to the produce itself, but rather to your accumulation of the produce into a pile, like the miduach, which obligates the produce in meiser, and not the accumulation of the produce into a pile of a goy. So Rabbi holds that if a goy harvests and gathers grain, the grain is not mechuyev in meiser. Over Rabbi says, no, from where do I know that a goy who acquires land in Eretz Yisrael does not cause the kedusha the land to be mafkiya by meiser? Shenemer the tan. Related to the Mishnah, I like the shichva apir shel goy. When it comes to the shichva apir of a goy, chayav meiser, it's mechuyev meiser. Alim kein hifker. So first of all, it's mechuyev meiser, unless the owner was mafkiya, it was mafkir, it made it ownerless. So the more tries to understand what's going on up here. If you're referring to a case that the shikha was of a yid, and a goy collected them and sold them to a yid, so how can you just say in kin hifker unless he made them ownerless? Hamafkir of a kaimei. Left the shikha belonging to a yid, automatically he's mafkirt. Allowed to goy. Rather, we're talking about that the lekas shikha is the goy, and who is collecting it? Collecting it is the yid. Rabbi says, time in the hefker. The reason that the produce is bought from meiser specifically because the goy made hefker. But if he did not make a mafker, then chayiv, it would be chayiv in meiser. So you can learn from this Mishnah that somebody acquires land, that when a goy acquires land, it does not cause a kedusha of the land with regards, it can't be mafkir the meiser. The one says, no, le'ilam d'Yisrael l'aktin goy. Actually, it could be that the lecha shikha and peah were of a yid, and the goy collected it. With the kamras of mafkir of a kaimeh, you asked, that didn't he already make it hefker? And he, the mafkir, that Yisrael, made that he made it, you're right that he made it hefker in regards to a yid. The goy made mafkir, but he make it hefker with regards to a goy. He did not, in fact, make it hefker for a goy. He expected only a yid to collect it. Therefore, if a goy collects them and sells them to a yid, the yid is obligated to give meiser. I think when it says Toshma, come, and I'll bring a raya from Brisa. If a yid who acquired a field from a goy, he bought a field from a goy before its produce reached a third of its growth, and we know when a shlish is grown, a person is obligated to give meiser. He then sold it to the goy after it reached a third of its growth. It's chayav meiser. Why shekvar and it's chayav? Because it's already obligated. The Gemara lives out in the chayav in that if it is only when the produce becomes obligated in meiser under the Yiddish ownership, and then the owner is obligated in meiser. But if the produce did not become obligated in meiser while under the Jewish ownership, then no. So this teaches us that produce that grows while the field is owned by a goy is pater from meiser, and a goy's kinyan in Eretz Yisrael is mafkiya the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael in regards to meiser. So when it says the afal ma'askin, we're talking about Syria. We're talking about that it's in Syria. Because Savar and the Tana holds that kibush lishmi kibush, that the conquest of an individual was not called a conquest. Since Syria was conquered in battle by David HaMelech and not by the Jewish people as a whole, it is not bound by all the same halachos that applies to Eretz Yisrael. That when it says Tashma Komen, here bring a raya from the Raisa. So there's a yid and a goy who bought a field in partnership. They own a field together. So the produce grown in that field is considered to be tevel and chulin, which are mixed together. This is Rebbe's words. Shimon Gamliel says the goy is exempt from tunas and meiser, and inside the yid, that is obligated. So the Gemara explains. So they only disagree with regards to Rav Shimon Gamliel holds that there is breda, I divide the produce. It's Hoover Lemafreya who owned the produce at the outset. But everyone will agree that a guy could buy land in Eretz Yisrael to mafkia mimaiser. So the Gemara says, so we see from here you could be. And for the Gemara, here we're talking about in Surya, it's the same answer. Come and hear a proof from the Mishnah. Mishnah says a person who sells his field to a guy, he has to buy back the field, buy back the produce to bring bikurim the field from the field that was sold. So which is masham to take an item in midiraisa only inside midirabanan, but not midiraisa. So what do we see from here? That kinyan of a goy is mafkia mimaiser, and the only reason why he has to bring it back is because tikkun elam. So Amar Rabashi shtei takonis haba. Actually, there are two takonis. When you could have a ma'aser midiraisa, initially those who sold their field to a goy would bring bikurim midiraisa, as they hold that kinyan of a goy does not mafkia it mimaiser. But once the Chacham saw that the Yid would sell their land to Goyim when they had the opportunity, because these Yidden thought that the fact that a Yid would still have to bring the Bikurim fruits indicates that Kedusha Sakaimi. So they thought that it still retains the Kedusha, and therefore there's no reason not to sell the land to the Goy. For those who sell the land to the Goy, that they should not bring the Bikurim, to emphasize that this land should not be sold to Goyim. This was the first takana. Once they saw that those who were not able to would sell their land despite the takana, and the fields would remain in the possession of the goyim, they went back and made a takana that they should bring the first fruits in order to sell to the seller, to encourage them to repurchase the land. This was the second takana. Therefore, one cannot prove the Mishnah whether or not a kinyan of a goy is mafkia mikdash or not, because it's a total different case somewhere. One who sells his field for just its produce, so he retains ownership of the field itself, and he sells the right to all the produce to someone else. So maybe So the Rebbe holds that the person who bought the rights to the field brings the bikurim of the field, and he reads the psukim of Shlakish says that the buyer brings the first fruits, but he doesn't recite it because it's not his field. Now, Rabbi holds, says that he brings the first fruits, and says the psukim because he holds that kinyan pears, kinyan guvdami. When you buy the pears, it's like buy the gufa pears. Shlakish kinyan pears, kinyan guvdami holds that no, just because you have the produce, it's not considered like the acquisition of the actual land. So now, asked the Shalakish from the Brisa concerning Bikurim. It says, it says, and to your house. What is now to your house? Refers to a person's wife. Teaches that a man brings his wife's Bikurim and he recites the Psukim. Now, this is true despite the fact that the husband acquires the field of his wife only for the produce, because let's say he doesn't own the actual field. So we see from this price that kinyan of pears is considered to be like the kinyan of the field. So Shlakish tells him, no, it says clearly, and to your house. Which teaches us that with regards to Bikurim, there is a clear exera, that a field belonging to one's wife is also included in the mitzvah. It does not prove that in general the kinyan of Paris is considered like the kinyan of the actual field. Now, and other people say one like this. So we see clearly that he says into your wife, which teaches that a man could bring the wife's first fruits and says the psukim. So he says, which is mashma, so he says there it is from that he brings the first fruits and says the psukim, despite having acquired only the rights to the produce, otherwise field, as it says, which, but in regards to other cases, one who acquired only a field's produce would not recite the psukim. So Rabbi said to him, I also stem a reason from here, as I see the halacha of a man bringing the produce from his wife's field is not an exception, but as a mocker for the general principle that kinyan of a field's produce is considered to be like the acquisition of the field itself. Now, Rish Lakish phrased based on the price. If a person was traveling on the road to Yerushalayim and the first fruits of his wife's field were in his possession, now he heard that his wife died. He brings the first fruits, and it says the psukim Mesa in Mashma. If she died, yes, he brings the bikurim besides the psukim, because he now is a yarshin of the field itself. Lay Mesa. But if she did not die, the Mashma lay that then no, he does not recite the psukim because the kinyan of payers is not considered like kinyan of the actual karka. Or it says no. What then the lay Mesa, the same malach would apply even if she did not die. He also brings the bikurim and his keda. Mesa is shechalei, and it's just the bride that needs to mention that she died. You would say that there should be a gzeda because of Beisi Reb Chanina. Why? Because Rabbi S Greenwald said, if a person harvests his first fruits and sent them in the possession of a shliach, died on his way, maybe be any kreda. So someone else brings the fruits, but does not say the pasuk. Psukim, says, says, and you shall take and you shall bring. Why does it say that? That the psukim are only recited until taking and bringing will be accomplished by one person. So you could have said that since the husband took the fruits as the owner of the fruits alone and not the field, as the field was owned by the wife, and then he becomes the owner of the field as well, and is bringing the fruits as the full owner, he should not recite the psukim because he doesn't have velokachta vevesa. Therefore, the pasuk teaches us he's considered a full-fledged owner before his wife's death, because kinyan of a field's produce is considered like kinyan of the actual field.